Today, I want to remind you of something simple but life-changing. You are your greatest asset. Everything you want, clarity in your decisions, strength in your mindset, and power in your future starts with the choice to invest in yourself. Not tomorrow, not when life feels easier, right now. Because the life you dream about will only appear when you commit to building it from the inside out. Having clarity is the starting point of every transformation. You can't change what you don't understand, and you can't move forward if you don't know where you're going. Most people think their lives will improve just by working harder, chasing random goals, or waiting for the right moment. But the truth is that without clarity, effort is scattered and directionless. Imagine trying to shoot an arrow at a target in the dark. You may have strength, you may have skill, but if you can't see where to aim, your energy is wasted. The same principle applies to life. Clarity is the light that reveals the path, the compass that keeps you from wandering in circles, and the filter that helps you decide what deserves your energy and what doesn't. When you get clear on what you want, you create a standard for yourself. You stop saying yes to everything and start focusing on the few things that truly matter. That's where real power comes from. Without clarity, you'll spend your days reacting to circumstances instead of shaping them. You'll let other people's opinions, expectations, and demands pull you in every direction until you feel stuck and frustrated. But once you know what matters to you, you gain the ability to say no without guilt, to focus without distraction, and to move with purpose. Clarity also builds confidence. When your mind is clouded with uncertainty, doubt grows louder and hesitation takes control. But when you have a clear vision, you don't waste energy second-guessing yourself. You may not know every step, but you know the direction, and that's enough to keep moving forward. Clarity doesn't mean having all the answers. It means knowing your why and trusting that every small step taken in alignment with it moves you closer to your goal. Think about the times in your life when you felt stuck. Chances are it wasn't because you lacked ability, it was because you lacked clarity. Maybe you didn't know what you really wanted, or maybe you were chasing something because others expected it, not because it aligned with who you are. The moment you sat down, reflected, and got honest with yourself, things began to shift. Clarity gives you momentum, because once you see the path, taking the first step feels natural. And here's the most powerful part. Clarity simplifies life. It cuts out the noise, the drama, and the distractions. It reminds you that you don't need to do 100 things to change your life. You need to identify the one habit, the one shift that aligns with your vision and commit to it. That's why clarity is the foundation of transformation. It breeds change because it forces you to decide, to focus, and to act with intention. The moment you gain clarity, your excuses lose power, your distractions fade, and your energy becomes directed toward building the life you actually want, not the one you're stuck tolerating. Small habits create big shifts, and that's one of the most overlooked truths about personal growth. People often think transformation requires some dramatic leap, a total life overhaul, quitting your job overnight, moving to a new city, or starting a massive project. But the reality is that change doesn't come from those rare, dramatic decisions. Change is built in the everyday, in the choices so small that most people underestimate them. The way you act in tiny moments, repeated over time, determines whether you remain stuck or build a life you're proud of. Think about it. Brushing your teeth for 2 minutes doesn't seem like a big deal, but doing it every single day prevents years of pain. The same principle applies to your success, your confidence, your health, and even your mindset. The difference between people who grow and those who stay the same isn't some extraordinary talent or stroke of luck. It's the decision to build small habits that stack up to massive results. A person who commits to reading just 10 pages a day may not feel much smarter in a week, but in a year, they've consumed the equivalent of 20 books. That's how knowledge compounds. A person who chooses to walk for 20 minutes daily won't look drastically different in a month, but in a year, their energy, confidence, and health will be unrecognizable. The danger comes when we underestimate these tiny actions. Because they don't feel powerful in the moment, we dismiss them as unimportant. Skipping a workout doesn't feel like it changes much. Putting off that project for one more day doesn't feel like failure. But those little dismissals add up just as much as the little commitments do. Every small choice is like a drop of water. One drop doesn't seem like anything, but over time, it can carve valleys into stone. That's the power of consistency. When you create a small habit and stick with it, you're not just building a new action, you're building trust with yourself. Every time you follow through, you prove to your own mind that you can rely on you. That's the foundation of self-confidence. It's not about standing in front of the mirror and chanting affirmations. It's about earning your own respect through the small commitments you keep. The beauty of this truth is that you don't need to change everything today. You don't need to wait until you're ready for a huge leap. You just need to pick one small habit and stay with it. Over time, that single decision will ripple outward, shifting your energy, your focus, and your identity. That's why small habits aren't small at all. They are the seeds of transformation. And just like a seed grows into a tree, what feels tiny today can one day become the very thing that changes your entire life. The reason hesitation destroys progress is because every time you pause, you give doubt a doorway to walk through. Think about it. How many times have you known exactly what you should do? Whether it's sending that message, speaking up in a meeting, going to the gym, or starting that project, but instead of acting, you stop and think. At first, it feels harmless, just a small pause, but in that pause, your brain begins to overanalyze. It starts whispering reasons why it's not the right time, why you aren't ready, or why you might fail. What could have been a moment of forward movement quickly turns into hesitation, and hesitation steals your chance to grow. Hesitation is like a thief that shows up silently. It doesn't scream at you. It doesn't push you back aggressively. Instead, it convinces you to wait. Waiting feels safe, but it's not progress. It's standing still. The longer you hesitate, the heavier the task feels and the more your confidence erodes. You begin to identify as someone who holds back rather than someone who takes bold action. Every delayed decision teaches your mind that comfort is more important than growth. And over time, that becomes your pattern. You avoid, you delay, you doubt. The truth is, you cannot build momentum if you hesitate at every turn. When you act quickly on the decisions you know are right, you bypass the mental spiral of overthinking. Immediate action interrupts fear before it has the chance to root itself in your mind. This doesn't mean reckless action. It means trusting yourself in the moment and moving forward without allowing unnecessary delay. For example, if your alarm rings in the morning and you instantly get out of bed, you start your day with a victory. If you wait and negotiate with yourself, that simple hesitation sets the tone for procrastination throughout the day. Small delays accumulate into lost opportunities, while small, immediate actions accumulate into confidence and progress. The power of overcoming hesitation lies in building trust with yourself. Every time you act without delay, you prove that you are reliable, that you can count on your own word. That trust builds self-respect. Self-respect builds confidence, and confidence builds momentum that can change your life. On the other hand, every moment of hesitation tells your brain you can't trust yourself, and your self-belief weakens. The difference between people who succeed and those who stay stuck is not intelligence, talent, or luck. It's the willingness to act before doubt can take over. Hesitation destroys progress because it kills the spark of action before it turns into fire. Progress requires movement, and movement begins the second you stop waiting and start doing. The longer you think, the less you do, but the quicker you act, the stronger you grow. Every time you choose action over hesitation, you choose growth over fear, And that single choice repeated consistently is what transforms your entire life. Discipline over motivation is the truth that most people don't want to hear, but it's the one principle that separates those who succeed from those who stay stuck. Motivation is like a spark. It feels exciting, it fires you up, but it fades as quickly as it comes. You've probably had days when you felt motivated, started something with energy, and then a few days later that motivation was gone. That's because motivation is based on emotion, and emotions shift constantly. If you rely only on motivation, you'll never be consistent, and without consistency, there is no real growth. Discipline, on the other hand, is like building a muscle. It doesn't care how you feel in the moment. It's not about excitement or mood. It's about showing up because you made a decision that your future matters more than your comfort right now. Discipline is setting the alarm and getting up even when you're tired. It's choosing to work on your goals when you'd rather scroll through your phone. It's keeping the promises you made to yourself even when no one else is watching. Discipline is uncomfortable, but it's the discomfort that builds strength and character. Every successful person you admire didn't get there because they were always motivated. They got there because they had the discipline to keep going on the days they didn't feel like it. Think about athletes, entrepreneurs, leaders, or anyone who's achieved something meaningful. They didn't wake up every day excited to practice, to work, to sacrifice, but they understood that action creates progress, and progress builds results, even when feelings aren't aligned. They trained their minds to act beyond emotion, and that's why they achieved what others only dream about. When you practice discipline, you take control of your life. You stop being a slave to moods, excuses, and procrastination. Instead, you become the kind of person who follows through no matter what. The powerful part about discipline is that it creates momentum. At first, it feels heavy, like pushing a huge boulder uphill, but the more consistent you are, the easier it becomes, until eventually it feels natural. Discipline turns into habit, and habit turns into identity. Suddenly, you're not just someone trying to work out. You are a disciplined person. You're not just someone forcing yourself to study. You are someone who shows up for their growth. The truth is, motivation might start the journey, but discipline is what finishes it. If you want to change your life overnight, stop waiting for motivation to appear. Build the discipline to act, especially when you don't feel like it. That's when growth happens. That's when you discover your true strength. And that's when your life begins to shift, not because you felt inspired for a moment, but because you chose discipline as your way of life. Every single day, your life is being shaped by the decisions you make. From the moment you wake up until the moment you fall asleep, you are casting votes for the kind of life you want to live. That's why decision shapes destiny. It's easy to underestimate the power of one choice, but when you look closely, everything in your life right now is the result of past decisions. Where you live, how healthy you feel, the strength of your relationships, even your financial situation. All of it is connected to decisions you made yesterday, last month, or even years ago. And the most powerful part is this: your future will be created in the exact same way. People often believe their destiny is controlled by fate, luck, or circumstances, but in truth, it's their choices that hold the steering wheel. The smallest decision, like whether you get up when your alarm rings, whether you choose to eat something healthy or give in to junk food, whether you speak up in a meeting or stay silent, those choices compound. Each one is like a brick, and day by day, you are building the foundation of your future. The challenge is that most of us underestimate how much control we actually have. We think one decision doesn't matter. We convince ourselves that skipping the workout, delaying the project, or ignoring that difficult conversation is harmless. But each of those choices is a vote for staying exactly where you are. Destiny doesn't suddenly change in one big leap. It changes gradually through a series of consistent decisions that either move you forward or hold you back. When you understand that your decisions are shaping your destiny, you begin to realize how much power you hold in every single moment. You don't need to wait for motivation, because action is a decision. You don't need to wait for confidence because courage is a decision. And you don't need to wait for the perfect plan because progress starts the second you choose to take one step forward. Think about someone you admire, someone who has achieved great success or transformation. If you break down their journey, it wasn't luck that brought them there. It was thousands of small decisions to keep going, to choose discipline over comfort, to say yes when fear told them to say no. Their destiny was built decision by decision, just like yours will be. The beauty is that you don't have to get it all right. No one does. What matters is that you consistently make more choices that align with the life you want than choices that pull you away from it. That balance tips over time, and before you know it, you've created momentum in the direction of your dreams. Every moment gives you another chance to cast a vote for your future. The question is, will you decide to step into the life you're meant to live, or will you decide to stay the same? Your destiny is waiting, and it's being written in the choices you make today. Interrupting old patterns is one of the most powerful ways to create real change in life because so much of what we do every single day happens on autopilot. Think about it. The way you react to stress, the way you start your morning, even the way you talk to yourself. It's all deeply ingrained habits, most of which you didn't consciously choose. These patterns feel normal, but often they are the very things holding you back from the life you want. The key to transformation is not just trying harder, but intentionally breaking those cycles and replacing them with actions that push you forward. When you notice yourself falling into the same old routine, that is the exact moment where you have the power to change. For example, maybe you always hit snooze when the alarm goes off, telling yourself you'll wake up later, but later never feels easier. Interrupting that pattern means making a new choice in that split second, getting up immediately, moving your body and starting your day with energy instead of delay. That single disruption changes not just your morning, but the confidence you carry into everything else you do. The same principle applies to negative self-talk. If your mind is constantly telling you that you can't do it or that you'll fail, your brain starts believing it. Interrupting that loop means catching yourself in the act and immediately replacing those words with a thought that empowers you. Instead of, I can't, you say, I can figure this out. Over time, your brain begins to adopt the new pattern, and that inner dialogue shifts from one of defeat to one of resilience. The truth is, old patterns are comfortable because they are familiar, not because they are helpful. You might stay in the habit of scrolling your phone late at night, overeating when stressed, or avoiding difficult conversations, but every time you choose the familiar route, you reinforce the life you don't want. Interrupting that cycle is uncomfortable at first, but it's also the birthplace of growth. Each time you stop the old behavior and replace it with something intentional, you are training your brain to build a new identity, one rooted in discipline, courage, and progress. Over time, these small interruptions compound. The more you practice disrupting the patterns that keep you stuck, the more automatic your new choices become. What used to feel impossible becomes natural, and that is the true secret. Lasting transformation doesn't come from one big decision. It comes from consistently interrupting the old story and writing a new one. When you learn to pause, notice, and redirect your habits, you are no longer a prisoner of your habit. You become the author of your future. Consistency creates identity, and that's the secret most people overlook when they're trying to change their lives. You don't become confident because you wish for it. You don't become disciplined because you wrote it down once in a journal. You become that person because you repeatedly cast votes for that version of yourself through your daily actions. Every time you show up, even in a small way, you reinforce the story you're telling yourself about who you are. And over time, those small acts of consistency reshape your identity from the inside out. Think about it like this. If you want to be a runner, you don't wait until you run a marathon to finally call yourself one. You become a runner the very first day you put on your shoes and run, even if it's only for 5 minutes. And each day you lace up again, no matter how far you go, you're proving to yourself that you are a runner. The same applies to any area of life. If you want to be someone who is disciplined, who is confident, who is successful, it begins the moment you act in alignment with that identity and then stay consistent with it. The reason consistency is so powerful is because it bypasses the trap of relying on motivation. Motivation is unreliable. It comes and goes with your mood, your energy, and your circumstances. But consistency doesn't ask whether you feel like it. It simply becomes a standard, a part of who you are. That's where the shift happens. You stop seeing your actions as chores and start seeing them as part of your character. You're no longer trying to become disciplined. You are disciplined because you consistently show up in that way. Here's the truth. Your brain and body love patterns. They crave repetition. The more often you do something, the more natural it becomes. At first, it takes effort. You may even feel resistance. But with consistency, what was once difficult becomes automatic. That's how habits are formed, and that's how identities are shaped. You don't need to be perfect, you just need to be steady. Missing a day doesn't erase your progress. What matters is getting back on track and proving that you don't quit on yourself. When you live with consistency, you start to trust yourself again. That trust is everything because confidence isn't built from speeches or pep talks. It's built from evidence. Every consistent action is evidence that you are reliable, strong, and capable. And when you have that trust in yourself, you no longer question whether you can achieve something. You simply know you can because your actions have been proving it all along. Consistency creates identity, and identity creates destiny. When you consistently act like the person you want to become, you eventually become that person. That's how real change happens. Not overnight through some magic formula, but every single day through the habit of showing up. Consistency is what separates people who dream of change from those who actually experience it. When you commit to repeating a single action over and over, you begin to build an identity around it. At first, it feels like effort, like work, like something you must constantly remind yourself to do. But over time, repetition turns into rhythm, and rhythm turns into who you are. Every small action you choose to repeat becomes a piece of the story you're writing about yourself. That's why consistency creates identity. Think about it this way. The first time you decide to wake up early, drink water, or take a walk instead of scrolling your phone, it doesn't change your life immediately. It's just one decision. But when you make that same decision again the next day and the day after, your brain begins to attach meaning to it. You're no longer just someone who tries to be disciplined. You're becoming disciplined. You're no longer just hoping for confidence. You're building it every single day through action. The real shift happens when you stop seeing your habit as something you're doing and start seeing it as part of who you are. A person who runs once in a while is someone who tries to exercise. A person who runs consistently, even short distances, eventually starts saying, I am a runner. That identity is powerful because it locks you into a cycle where action fuels belief and belief fuels more action. The habit may have started small, but consistency turned it into a lifestyle. This is why so many people fail when they expect instant results. They want the habit to deliver rewards right away, but the true reward comes from sticking with it long enough for it to define you. Consistency teaches patience, resilience, and long-term vision. It proves to you that you are capable of showing up even when you don't feel like it, and that builds an inner trust that no one can take away. When you know you can depend on yourself, everything else in life becomes easier to handle. The beauty of consistency is that it doesn't require perfection. Missing a day or stumbling along the way doesn't erase your progress. What matters is coming back again and again, refusing to give up. Every return strengthens your identity even more because it shows that your habit isn't fragile, it's real, and it belongs to you. Over time, people will notice the shift. They'll see you not as someone who talks about changing, but as someone who embodies it. And when you begin to see yourself in that same light, your confidence skyrockets. So the one habit that can change your life overnight isn't just the action itself, it's the decision to repeat it until it becomes who you are. Consistency takes you from doing to becoming, from effort to identity. And once your identity shifts, your life will follow.